Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really focused look at the political and economic landscape, specifically the Trump 2.0 administration as of April 2025.
Right, and specifically through that Make America Great Again lens.
Exactly. We've got some interesting sources, White House fact sheets, some deep reporting from the New York Times, and also that Project 2025 overview.
Which gives a broader kind of ideological frame.
Yeah. So our mission today is really to pull all this together for you, try and figure out the core strategies, the actions, and, where things might be heading.
We'll be hitting key themes. Economic nationalism, that's a big one.
Huge. And global alliances, domestic manufacturing, shifts in social policy, too.
It all seems quite interconnected, actually, not just separate policies.
That's what I was thinking. It feels like parts of a larger strategy.
And having these different sources, the official statements, the reporting, the think tank view, helps build that picture.
Okay, so let's dive in. The economic strategy seems key. They're calling it 4D chess. What's that about?
Yeah, 4D chess, it suggests multiple layers working at once. More than meets the eye, maybe.
So what's layer one?
Layer one seems to be what some call the illusion. Think high-profile stuff like declaring that national emergency over the trade deficit back in early April.
Right, and the tariffs that followed, the 10% across the board, plus higher ones for certain countries.
Exactly. That was April 5th and 9th. Now, this could be about trade, sure, but it might also be, a distraction or maybe leverage for other things.
Okay, so a visible move, but maybe not the whole game. What's layer two?
Layer two is rebuilding the U.S. This is where tariffs are supposed to push companies towards onshoring, bringing manufacturing back.
Makes sense with the Manji theme.
But it's nuanced. The New York Times pointed out exemptions for things like Chinese electronics, smartphones, modems, that sort of thing.
Why exempts those?
Because, well, there isn't much domestic production capacity for them right now, so it suggests a pragmatic side. Pressure where possible, but acknowledge reality too.
So targeted pressure, aimed long-term at building domestic capacity. Okay. Layer three, global alliances.
Right. This is about the geopolitics. Tariffs, even on allies like Canada and Mexico, send a strong signal.
A signal like America first, even with friends.
Pretty much. It could be about forcing bilateral deals, maybe isolating China by making alignment with the U.S. more attractive, or just negotiating harder terms all around. It's using economic muscle to reshape relationships.
Okay, and the final layer, control of global money. That sounds ambitious.
It definitely is. And details are still a bit thin, but the idea seems to be reinforcing the U.S. dollar's dominance globally.
How?
Well, there's talk of the Mar-a-Lago Accords. We don't know specifics as of April 2025, but it sounds like an initiative to consolidate financial control, keep the dollar central.
Against challenges from other currencies or blocks, maybe?
Potentially, yes. It's about maintaining American financial power on the world stage. So, yeah, these tariffs seem like one piece of a much bigger economic puzzle.
A puzzle aimed at economic nationalism, boosting American industry, and maybe reshaping global finance. Okay. How does domestic policy, like taxes, fit in?
It fits right in. Extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, keeping that corporate rate down at 15% is a direct incentive for businesses.
Stay here or come back because taxes are low.
Exactly. It's the carrot. And the tariffs. They're potentially the stick, making imports more expensive. The idea is domestic production becomes the more attractive option.
Got it. And deregulation.
Yeah.
We've seen moves like pausing the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act enforcement, ending certain greenhouse gas reporting requirements.
The argument there is always about reducing burdens on business, freeing up capital, encouraging growth, especially in tech, energy.
Less red tape equals more investment.
That's the theory. Of course, there are counter-arguments. Pausing FCPA could raise ethical concerns abroad. End in GHG reporting has obvious environmental implications.
And we've seen these figures reported: GDP up 3%, more oil production, national debt slightly down year over year.
Right. Those numbers are part of the economic picture the administration would likely point to as success.
Though connecting specific policies to broad numbers is always tricky, isn't it?
Always. So many factors are at play in an economy.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Foreign policy. We hear about a 3D strategy. Realigning alliances, isolating China.
Yeah, it seems to be a mix of direct engagement, sometimes unconventional, and also pulling back from certain multilateral things.
Like sending Steve Witkoff to Russia for Ukraine ceasefire talks, with Trump pushing it on social media.
Exactly. Direct approach, even with adversaries, But then you see the opposite, like cutting off funding for the World Food Program.
Which the UN warned would have dire consequences. That's a major shift.
It is. Similar high stakes with the proposed direct talks with Iran on a nuclear deal, coupled with that great danger warning if they fail.
It feels very transactional.
It does seem that way. Look at halting aid to South Africa and the call about resettling white Afrikaner refugees. That's a very specific ideologically driven move.
And then there's the big arms deal with Israel, nearly $7.5 billion.
Alongside moves to review UN funding overall, pulling out of the Human Rights Council again, stopping UNRWA funding.
It paints a picture of prioritizing certain bilateral relationships, maybe Israel, and a real skepticism towards these big international bodies.
That seems to be a core theme. Reevaluating commitments, viewing things through a lens of direct American interest, even if it disrupts established norms or alliances.
Let's talk social issues. There's definitely a culture war strategy playing out, isn't there?
Absolutely. It aligns closely with the traditional value side of the Magie movement.
Examples.
Cutting federal funds for main schools over transgender athletes, restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors, new housing policies for transgender prisoners.
And removing the third gender option on IDs. That felt quite symbolic.
Very symbolic. It reinforces a binary view, pushing back against more progressive ideas on gender identity in official policy.
We also saw reports about cuts at the education department, targeting specific research arms, and a general push against DEI initiatives.
Right. It signals a clear set of priorities on the cultural front, favoring certain perspectives.
Now, inside the government itself, there have been changes. Big federal workforce cuts ordered.
Yes, reportedly quite large scale. And interestingly, involving someone linked to Elon Musk's cost-cutting team, that DOGE initiative name came up.
Suggests a private sector, efficiency-driven approach to the bureaucracy.
That seems to be the goal. Streamlining, cutting costs, though the initial savings target was apparently lowered.
What about other internal shifts? Talk of an FBI purge, getting rid of the DOJ's crypto crime unit, consolidating federal personal data.
The stated reasons usually involve efficiency or security or rooting out waste, like consolidating data to find fraud.
What's the concerns?
Concerns often involve potential politicization, losing specialized expertise like in crypto crime, and major privacy worries with that data consolidation. Critics might see it as ensuring loyalty.
And this all ties back to that deregulatory push generally?
Yes, reducing the size and scope and regulatory power of the federal government remains a constant theme across different areas.
Okay, let's touch on health and science. Some unconventional moves there, too. The call to ban fluoride in drinking water, supported by the health secretary, RFK Jr.
That's definitely outside the mainstream scientific consensus on fluoride's dental benefits. It aligns with certain pockets of skepticism about public health measures. Having the secretary's support gives it significant weight, though.
And demanding big budget cuts at the CDC, especially after recent years.
It suggests a potential move away from prioritizing large public health agencies and initiatives that might appeal to some who are skeptical of those programs.
While alarming others about preparedness for future health issues.
Exactly. It signals a shift in priorities.
On the tech and innovation side, though, there seems to be investment. Those big space launch contracts for SpaceX, Blue Origin, ULA.
Absolutely. That fits the America First and innovation theme, investing in U.S. space capabilities, both commercial and strategic. It's about leadership in that high-tech frontier.
But then there's TikTok. The deadline for separating from ByteDance keeps getting extended.
Yeah, that shows the complexity, right? Balancing national security worries about a foreign-owned platform against the economic impact, free speech arguments. It's not a simple ban-it situation, apparently.
Okay, let's bring in Project 2025. Trump denied involvement, but the alignment between its ideas and administration actions seems noticeable.
It's striking. Project 2025 lays out this comprehensive conservative policy playbook. And you see actions on DEI, on transgender rights, on regulatory changes that mirror its recommendations quite closely.
So even without a formal link, it seems to offer a kind of ideological roadmap.
It provides valuable context, yeah. It shows the broader conservative thinking that seems to be informing or at least aligning with many of these policy choices.
And tying it all together, these policies, economic nationalism, border focus, which we haven't detailed, but is core, MIGA, traditional values, they all resonate with that base, don't they?
They do. It's a package. Prioritizing perceived American interests, boosting the domestic economy through specific means, and upholding certain social norms, it creates a cohesive narrative for the movement.
So, zooming out one last time, geopolitically, What are the big takeaways?
Well, the divide with China is clearly deepening. Trade issues, strategic competition, it's central.
And relationships with allies.
Strained in some cases. Those proposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico created friction. There's uncertainty. Plus, Fed Chair Powell himself noted the potential for tariffs to push up inflation.
And the pullback from global institutions.
That could reshape global cooperation on big issues. It shifts the balance, potentially weakens multilateral efforts if the U.S. is less engaged or funding less. It's a move towards a more unilateral or bilateral approach.
Okay, so summing up, based on what we've seen up to mid-April 2025, the long-term strategies look like. Reshaping global alliances, maybe seeking more control over financial systems, definitely prioritizing domestic manufacturing, all under that Maggie umbrella.
That seems like a fair assessment of the trajectory based on our sources. But, you know, things are always moving, always dynamic. The full impact takes time to unfold.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for everyone listening. When you consider all these interconnected shifts, the economic changes, the political realignments, the social currents, what do you think are the biggest potential opportunities and challenges ahead for the U.S. and for the world? Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.